John Bagley was moving his extension board, which reminds me, I ordered an extension.
All right,
board.
we've got Kayla's.
Yeah, that's three.
Oh, that's three. David, thank you for coming.
Yeah. Let's see, who's missing? Allison and Mark. One, Lenny,
Lenny,
Raina.
have you heard from
Nobody.
anybody?
You came in person.
I went to the wrong meeting. I was sitting in this.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I once went to what I thought was a vestry meeting at my church, and it was a meeting of the St. Augustine Society. Look it up. Look it up. Sex Addicts Anonymous. Okay.
Yeah. All right, we can start. Thank you.
Good.
So what's going on? All right, so it's the 7 o'clock, so we can start our meeting. And the first thing I want to start with is we finally have a new committee clerk, Katie Holden. And welcome, so glad to have you here. And of course Cassidy's helping out tonight for your first meeting. So counselors present at the beginning of the meeting are Counselor Getz from Ward 5, Counselor Danberg from Ward 6, myself, Susan Albright from Ward 2, and I think we have David Kalis online from Ward 8. I don't think we have any other counselors in my right.
Gentile.
Counselor Gentile from Ward 4, great. Okay. So our first item is 392-24. For order of the mayor appointing Alexander Lee, 11 Chapel Street, Lincoln, as a member of the Sustainable Materials Management Commission for a term to expire on November 4th, 2027. Mr. Lee, hi, would you like to join us at the table? I know you had 2 meetings at the same time, so I'm glad you came.
Yeah, and then I went to the wrong one, so. I don't live at 11 Chapel Street anymore. I moved
Oh.
over this summer, so I don't know if the record should reflect that.
Yeah, so where do you live now?
10 Rogers Street,
Same ward.
same ward,
Ward
same zip code, same, yeah,
So
kids are in the same school.
where we usually start is just tell us why you like to be on this particular committee.
I've attended a number of meetings, and so gotten to know the committee and the feel of it, and worked on environmental stuff for my whole life since I was a kid at Fessenden School. And care deeply about plastics and our schools. I'm missing a PTO meeting right now. And well, that we do a good job in the city of Newton being role models in the way that we handle our solid waste.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Lee? Councilor Anderson.
I just want to say thank you very much for being willing to serve.
Yeah.
And we've had a number of back and forths over a few things. I've been deeply involved in and very interested in reduction of plastics and solid waste and recycling issues, and trying to get composting also going in the city, and deeply appreciate your interest and your willingness to volunteer. So thank you. And if we don't have a person from Ward 1 here tonight, I would be happy to, although we have Ward 3, so that's closer than Ward 6. If you'd like to, if you would like to,
I don't even know. We've been joined by Councilor.
And what would you like?
and would you like to move to approve Ward 1?
Let me just, and welcome back to our meeting, we've been joined by Councilor Kelly from Ward 3. And we have been introduced, Mr. Lee just gave us a brief summary of why he'd like to be on the Sustainable Materials Committee.
With that, I will move.
Okay.
And I'm happy to.
Okay. I will just, if I don't see anybody else, I'll just say that since I've started composting with the Black Earth people, And I realize how much of the weight of my trash is compostable. When we had Juanita here, I asked her, why don't we require it? And she explained to me that the reasons why we don't require it. But it feels to me like we should be moving in that direction, because most of the weight of our trash is in the food materials we throw away. And we could save an amazing amount of money if we composted that instead of recycled it, instead of throwing it away. So as part of what I'd like to say to you as a new member to the Sustainable Materials Committee, see what you can do to convince everybody that we need to move towards requiring it.
Okay, yeah, we do it in our house, and we just have 3 square yards of, black earth
Black earth?
compost.
We're black
Good.
earth too.
Just, for briefly, I also compost, I know a number of us do, I think Councilor Getz composts also. And that's absolutely true, that we could save a huge amount of money because we do our, as you all know, I think everybody in this room. Knows that we negotiate our, contracts by weight.
Right.
And a good 30 or somewhere between 30 and 40% of our waste is able to be composted. Is organic material, so let's see if we can do it. Right now, those of us who do it pay whatever it is, $120
$60 $120 a year.
$120 a year to do it.
Not including the bags.
Right, but I think that if we did the math, we could find out that we could be pretty close to that. If the city picked up the tab and required it of everyone.
Great.
So,
I mean, my only response to that is it's about training people,
yes,
people gotta figure out.
I'm helping them understand how they do it, you know, what do you do in your kitchen when you get the materials that you wanna throw away, where do you put them, what do you?
Yeah.
You know, really, it needs a lot of
Yeah, we've
education.
been doing it in our church, nobody knows what to put in what bin.
Yeah.
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 The real composting, if it was ever alive, it can be composted.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's quite true of the black earth, because.
Well, they can industrially compost and they
Yeah.
have an enzyme or.
Yeah,
So.
So I think
that
Councilor Kelly has moved
Oh.
quite way
I had to bring your resume, so.
Councilor Kalis, you had your hand up, do you still have a question or a comment?
No. I mean, my only comment was I completely agree with the composting. I think it's all about ideas. I mean, we know what needs to be done. And what I'd say to you, Alexander, is just bring ideas to the table, because no idea is a bad idea. And as a way to get people to understand how easy composting can be. It's just it baffled me when I started. I was just like, why have I not been doing this? And when I talk to other people, they start up and they get it, but it's just all about how do we market this. So, welcome.
So
Thank
we're
you.
sending you to the committee with lots of responsibility.
All right, there are a few of them here, so they know what I'm supposed to do now.
It's not all on your shoulders, by the way, just to let you know. And it is an educational thing, and pretty soon, as we've been hearing from Juanita, we're not gonna be able to put food waste in the trash. So the sooner we all get on board with this,
Yeah.
the better it is. So
Okay,
anyway, so moved.
Okay, so the approval has been moved by Councilor Kelly, and there I see no other questions or comments. So we can vote, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no, abstentions. So you have been approved.
Thank you.
This will be taken up by the next council, when is that, the next council meeting?
but we.
November 4.
Okay,
Yes.
you don't
Day
have to
before the
come.
election.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have to come to that meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Good to meet you in person.
Yeah, great to meet you too.
Okay, we have, the next 4 items are related to each other. So I think what we've decided to do is open the public hearing for all 4 of them at the same time, and we can have comments that relate to National Grid's handling of these items, so let me just read them into the record. 39624, National Grid petition of grant location to install and maintain gas main in Center Street as follows, and there are a number of intersections in Center Street that I hope that you've all looked at. And it's 39724, National Grid petition for grant of location to install and maintain gas on Walnut Street, also at a bunch of locations, which I hope you have all looked at. 39824, National Grid petition of grant of location to install and maintain gas in Washington Street as follows, and again, a series of intersections for Washington Street. And the final one is 399-24, National Grid grant of location to install and maintain gas main in Canterbury Road as follows. And there are again a number of locations for those. And so all of those hearings are open, and Mary Mulrooney, are you here to present for National Grid?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Good evening.
Should I start with the first one on Center Street?
Yes, please.
Okay. National Grid respectfully requests your consent for a grant of location as part of the cast iron replacement program. National Grid recommends the relay of approximately 65 feet of 10-inch cast iron dating back to 1899, approximately 85 feet of 12-inch bare steel dating back to 1964, and approximately 935 feet of 10-inch cast iron dating back to 1899, approximately 15 feet of 10-inch bare steel dating back to 1899, and approximately 20 feet of 12-inch coated steel, and approximately 15 feet of 10-inch coated steel, with 1,135 feet of 12-inch plastic in Center Street from the existing 12-inch coated steel from 1964 in Center Ave to the existing 10-inch cast iron dating back to 1899 at number 543 Center Street, approximately 50 feet of 4-inch cast iron dating back to 1898, and approximately 775 feet of 6-inch cast iron dating back to 1930, approximately 300 feet of 6-inch bare steel dating back to 1933, with approximately 1,125 feet of 12-inch plastic in Vernon Street from Center Street to Park Street. And then approximately 85 feet of 6-inch cast iron 1930, and approximately 15 feet of 6-inch bare steel from 1933, with approximately 100 feet of 6-inch plastic in the intersection of Eldridge Street and Vernon Street. And then replace 40 feet of 6-inch cast iron dating back to 1930, with approximately 40 feet of 6-inch plastic in the intersection of Baldwin Street and Vernon Street. Approximately 320 feet of 6-inch bare steel dating back to 1938, with approximately 320 feet of 8-inch plastic in Mount Ida Street from Center Street to the existing 6-inch plastic in Newtonville Ave. Approximately 405 feet of 3-inch wrought iron dating back to 1933, and approximately 315 feet of 3-inch cast iron dating back to 1903, with 720 feet of 6-inch plastic in Hollis Street from the existing 10-inch cast iron dating back to 1899 at 515 Center Street to the existing 10-inch cast iron dating back to 1899 at 543 Center, and approximately 595 feet of 4-inch cast iron dating back to 1910, and approximately 15 feet of 6-inch plastic dating back to 1999, with approximately 610 feet of 8-inch plastic in Church Street from Center Street to the existing 8-inch plastic 2015 at 120 Church Street, and abandon approximately 40 feet of 4-inch bare steel dating back to 1953 in Wesley Street South, and approximately 30 feet of 4-inch bare steel 1948 in Wesley Street North.
Can I just say something before you go to the next one? So the reason why she's telling us about how many feet of each inch is being replaced is because I read the regulations, the DPU regulations. And the DPU regulations require that National Grid replace, this was back in 1991. They required that within 10 years, they would replace cast iron that was older than 1860 and less than 8 inches. So I wanted to know what inches that they were replacing and how old they were. So they've kind of figured out the numbers. But it's hard for us to understand this when we've got it in pieces. So if we hold this, Mary, I'm hoping that you'll come back and summarize it for us by year of year and size and type. Because it's hard for us to, I couldn't possibly add it up the way you were doing it, of course you're giving it this way, but it's hard for us to add it up and know what you're really doing. So was that all Center Street?
Yes, it is.
Okay, do you wanna go on and do Walnut Street next?
Madam Chair, I just have a question. Are we
Yes.
gonna take public comment on each item or all at the end?
So public comment can be on all of them or on particular one, that's why, since the issue is very much the same on all of them, it seemed like we should open them all up at once. And unless you have an objection to that.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, no, I just wondered if for people.
People can speak about a particular street or about the thing in general.
Great, thanks. I'm okay with that too.
Okay, Mary, go ahead.
Okay, the next one is on Walnut Street. And National Grid requests to replace for the cast iron replacement program. They recommend the relay of 220 feet of 12-inch cast iron dating back to 1904 with 220 feet of 12-inch plastic in Walnut Street from 1136 Walnut Street to 1170 Walnut Street. They'd like to replace 690 feet of 10-inch cast iron dating back to 1898 with approximately 695 feet of 12-inch plastic in Walnut Street from 1162 Walnut south of Bridge to 1208 Walnut Street. They'd like to replace 310 feet of 10-inch cast iron dating back to 1906 with approximately 310 feet of 8-inch plastic in Lincoln Street from Walnut Street to the existing 8-inch plastic at 34 Lincoln Street. They'd like to replace 30 feet of 4-inch plastic dating back 2008 to 2006 with approximately 10 feet of, they were going to replace 10 feet of 4-inch bare steel dating back to 1954 and approximately 1,360 feet of 4-inch cast iron dating back to 1898 and approximately 135 feet of 6-inch cast iron dating back to 1933 with the total being a replacement of new pipe, 1,535 feet of 8-inch plastic in Floral Street from Hyde Street to number 123 Floral Street. And they'd like to replace 195 feet of 4-inch cast iron dating back to 1911 and approximately 15 feet of 4-inch plastic with approximately 210 feet of 4-inch plastic in Floral Place from Floral Street to the end of the main at number 13 Floral Place. And replace 40 feet of 4-inch plastic dating back to 1992 and approximately 275 feet of 4-inch cast iron dating back to 1909 and approximately 55 feet of 4-inch bare steel dating back to 1956. Combined, it would be new 370 feet of 6-inch plastic in Hyde Street from the existing 4-inch plastic at house number 120 Hyde Street to Center Street.
That takes care of Walnut Street. So tell us now about Washington Street.
Yeah, Washington Street, surely. National Grid requests a grant of location consent for the cast iron replacement program. The relay of approximately 3,105 feet of 10-inch low-pressure cast iron dating back to 1899, approximately 15 feet of 10-inch coated steel from 1976, with a new total of combined 3,120 feet of 8-inch plastic in Washington Street from the existing 24-inch cast iron in Commonwealth Ave to the railroad crossing at 1940 Washington Street. They'd like to relay approximately 250 feet of 6-inch cast iron from 1926, with approximately 250 feet of 2-inch plastic in Bonmere Circle from the new 8-inch plastic in Washington Street to the end of the main at number 15 Bonmere Circle. They'd also like to relay approximately 230 feet of 6-inch cast iron dating back to 1927, with approximately 230 feet of 2-inch plastic in Anger Circle from the new 8-inch plastic in Washington Street to the end of Main at 19 Anger Circle. It also, the abandonment of approximately 25 feet of 10-inch cast iron in the intersection of Washington Street and Woodland Road. They'd cut and cap the existing 6-inch cast iron in Woodland Road, and the relay of approximately 30 feet of 6-inch cast iron 1928 with approximately 30 feet of 6-inch plastic stub in the intersection of Washington Street and Hope Street. Cut and cap the existing 6-inch cast iron in Hope Street. The relay of approximately 25 feet of 4-inch cast iron dating back to 1899, approximately 20 feet of 4-inch plastic from 2000, and approximately 275 feet of 4-inch coated steel from 1951, with a combined total, a new total of, they'd like to install 320 feet of 2-inch plastic in Seton Hill Road from the new 8-inch plastic in Washington Street to the end of Main at house number 20 Seton Hill Road. The relay of approximately 30 feet of 6-inch cast iron from 1927 with approximately 30 feet of 6-inch plastic stub in the intersection of Washington Street and Leslie Road, cut and cap existing 6-inch cast iron in Leslie Road. And the relay of approximately 20 feet of 4-inch BS steel 1940 with approximately 20 feet of 6-inch plastic stub in the intersection of Washington Street, cut and cap the existing 4-inch BS steel in Day Street. The relay of approximately 740 feet of 6-inch cast iron dating back to 1914 with approximately 745 feet of 6-inch plastic in Aspen Ave from the new 8-inch plastic in Washington Street to the existing 6-inch at house number 115 Aspen Ave. And the installation of 85 feet of 6-inch plastic in Aspen Ave between the gap at 112 and 115 Aspen Ave. The relay approximately of 55 feet of 6-inch cast iron dating back to 1914 with approximately 55 feet of 2-inch plastic in the intersection of Forest and Aspen Ave. The abandonment approximately of 95 feet of 4-inch plastic from 1998 in private property between Stanton Ave to Day Street, and the relay of approximately 330 feet of 4-inch plastic from 1988 with approximately 330 feet of 2-inch plastic in Stanton Ave from the new 8-inch plastic in Washington to the end of Main at number 25 Stanton Ave.
Thanks.
That's Washington.
And then the next one is Canterbury.
The last one's Canterbury.
Yeah.
This is the same request. It's for cast iron main replacement program and also paving on Boylston Street. It's approximately 660 feet of 2-inch plastic dating back to 1979 with approximately 660 feet of 4-inch plastic in Boylston Street from the existing 2-inch plastic at 121 Boylston to the existing 3-inch plastic at 1173 Boylston, approximately 280 feet of 4-inch cast iron from 1907 and 1910, with approximately 280 feet of 4-inch plastic in Bacon Place from Boylston to Waldorf, approximately 90 feet of 4-inch plastic dating back to 2008, and approximately 660 feet of 4-inch cast iron from 1907, 1911, and 1915, with approximately 750 feet of 4-inch plastic in Waldorf Road from Canterbury Road to Bacon Place. Approximately 620 feet of 4-inch cast iron dating back to 1914, and 335 feet of 6-inch cast iron from 1926, placing it with approximately 955 feet of 4-inch new plastic in Canterbury Road from Meredith Ave to 73 Canterbury Road. To replace approximately 230 feet of 6-inch cast iron dating back to 1926 with approximately 230 feet of 4-inch plastic in Ridgeway Terrace from Canterbury Road to end of Main at 18 Ridgeway Terrace. Replace approximately 270 feet of 8-inch cast iron from 1904, putting in 270 feet of new 4-inch plastic in Meredith Ave from number 4 Meredith Ave to 22 Meredith Ave, dead end Main at 22 Meredith Ave, and abandonment approximately 75 feet of 6-inch low-pressure plastic dating back to 1974, and approximately 125 feet of 8-inch cast iron from 1904 between 22 Meredith Ave and the intersection of Harrison Street and Lincoln Street.
Okay. Thank you very much. So are there any questions or comments from the committee before we open?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, for enumerating, all of this. A couple of questions. I noticed that, 8-inch cast iron is being replaced with 4-inch plastic. We're replacing 2-inch, plastic with, 4-inch plastic. Couple of questions about that. What diameter is usable if it's cast iron from 1904 currently? Do you have a sense of what the usable diameter is from a 1904 8-inch? Is it 4 inches of usable? Is there how much gunk is there on the inside of that? That's question number one. Question number two, why are we replacing 2008 4-inch plastic with something else? Is there some reason why the 4-inch plastic has not held up? Or do you just want to get everything of a uniform diameter? That would be helpful for me to know.
Okay, so for your question about what's inside the 8-inch cast iron pipe or bare steel pipe from the 1900s, you wouldn't know that until you cut it. The reason you...
I'm sure you've cut into that pipe before and have a sense.
Well, it would probably depend on the section of the pipe that you're cutting in. But it's to answer you answered the question down below, is the reason like we're reducing it in some areas and increasing it in some areas is to keep consistency with the pressure, with the gas, and the plastic hasn't failed, but they just want to keep everything smooth, streamlined, and the system up and running.
Okay.
So that public safety, is in mind and everything is safe for the general public.
Okay, If I can ask one more question.
Sure.
I actually printed up the Washington Street and the Canterbury Road. Because there were Q and As that you have kindly answered. And, one of the questions, which was, essentially, why are you doing this? Is that, there are, open grade 3 leaks. And that in the case of Washington Street, 65 leaks have been repaired since 2012. Is it cheaper for the ratepayer, not for the, because I know well, I guess both of them. Because I know that all of this expense is being passed on to the consumer. Is it cheaper for you to replace it or to repair the same number of leaks over the next 20 years, let's say?
Well, National Grid would like to keep the public safe, so they go in and they replace under the DPU guidelines what is needed for public safety. And these projects that have been submitted tonight are for that reason. There have been leaks on the street. To go and do individual repairs it would be many different things would be problematic with it. It would, for the time, for that you would be leaving a large area not replaced, and as construction is in the area, it can compromise the old pipe in the ground. So for that reason, they like to set their project, do it out, and make everything safe.
Okay, and I'll just leave you with one last comment, and that is that the city and many of the citizens, I would venture to say the majority of the citizens in the city of Newton are on board with electrification and not continuing with gas. And I think in order to make the decision that we're making on replacement, we need to understand the safety issue, the cost issue, and what the goal of the company is. And that is the goal, if the goal of the city is to move to electrification by 2050, and the product will last, let's say, the next 100 years, the question would be, should we be doing a replacement as opposed to a repair? And what are the trade-offs of replacement and repair? You've articulated the safety issue, which I understand. And I will now cede to my colleagues for further questions.
So Tammy S. from National Grid. I just saw your hand is raised. Can you identify yourself and tell us?
Yes, good evening. I'm Tammy Saporito. I'm the community manager that handles Newton. I work with Mary, and I've met with you guys before. I just wanted to assist with the questions with regard to why we're replacing it. We're not looking at a point of cost. We're looking at the fact that the gas main is being replaced to remove the aging leak-prone pipe infrastructure that's presently in these areas. That is the main concern of the company, to keep the city of Newton and their residents safe at all costs. If it was possible to repair and not risk more leaking or eliminate that risk, we would just do that. That is not, the repair is not going to eliminate the risk of the pipe potentially, with the age of some of these, possibly breaking. The only way to eliminate it is to replace it with newer pipe And we realize we have climate goals as well, as far as electrification and many things like that go. This, if we could speed up changing things, we would. But as you know, it's not something that's going to be done overnight.
So Tammy, the regulations, as I understand them, said that back in 1991, that pipe that was cast over than 1860 or less than 8 inches, supposed to be a plan and replaced in 10 years. Of course, that was more than 10 years ago, and I guess not, most of what you told us about is bigger than to 8 inches, but some of what you told us about is 8 inches or less. So, I mean, it's clear that the 8 inches stuff has to go according to the Department of Public Utilities, but it's not clear about the rest of us. And one question that I have, again, if we hold this, is what's the empirical evidence that you can give us that tells us that we can't repair these pipes instead of replace them? I think we need to know more about what's the science that causes you to say these have to be replaced.
With many of the age and the amount of leaking, when our design, engineering, and planning looks at areas that need replacement, they're prioritized based on that, and based on the age, and based on the locations, because certain amounts of leaking just continue. And as you know, there are grade 3 significant environmental impact leaks, grade 2 leaks, grade 1 leaks. What we don't want is for something that's along the lines of a grade 2 and we monitor to become a grade 1. And then further down the street, there's another grade 1. Further down the street, there's another grade 1. We've had instances in going into winter where we get water intrusion and things like that, that not only is it unsafe, but it's an extreme inconvenience for your residents to have water intruding, ruining their furnaces and their appliances and miscellaneous. And we've had that happen, and going into change of weather is another concern that National Grid has to look at. And public safety is the key and the number one reason we look and prioritize to replace what we do.
That's all.
I can request engineering to give you more information, which we've done before, to justify why and how we prioritize it. The best answer I can give you is public safety. This is much, much different than a water leak. The water pipes are old, and so are the gas pipes.
I think the committee's gonna need some of the science behind your lack of ability to repair. So just keep that in mind as something that you may have to come back and tell us about. Councilor
Oh, I'm sure, yes, and I'll be happy to bring that back because I know we have done it before, so I know we can explain it. That's not a problem.
Just,
In the larger picture, I really appreciated you suggesting that we actually should have a table or some sort of tabulation that has the existing and replacement, and it's just all in one visual with a chart, so that then you can just take it all in rather than the narrative, because it's just very complicated and you can't hold on to the replacement values. So, I would appreciate that. And then the gas line is being replaced on my street. And they've been digging up and they've been testing and I'm sure that the pipe that's there is the original pipe from the turn of the last century. So it's in this, saga of the oldest pipes. But I'm curious because I'm even on the phase right now where we're actually considering alternative energy, sources in our own personal home. And I'm just sort of thinking ground source, or, why are you digging up the street? But I would really like to understand why you are prioritizing where you are, this, I have no sense of the large scheme. and why you were selectively choosing these streets and, you know, these runs of pipe. But so I would like to know that. And then, just lastly, the person that knocked on my door had said that this was actually coming from a federal, regulation. So can you speak to that? The gas pipe replacement was a requirement, federal regulation, and I was curious about that.
Tammy or Mary, are you aware of the federal regulations in this regard?
We comply with the state regulations and OSHA. So for this detail, I don't know. I don't know if what the person told the counselor. I exactly. It was federal. That's what you said, counselor.
Yes, yeah.
Do you know who the person's name was that you spoke with?
I absolutely do. I have his card on my desk at home, so I
Okay,
can
good.
play that. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, you know, we can only do so much pipe replacement in every town. So this was probably picked, these projects were picked because of the leak history and the age of the pipe and everything that goes into it to comply with state law. So that's why it's, like I said, public safety. And just so that you know, when you were saying you want it to be presented differently, I believe it was presented this way, so that when your engineers who actually approve the permits for the work being done and create the constraints of what National Grid does with the work, you know, from paving to details, everything that goes into it, that I think it was written so that your engineering department could figure it out. But that's not an issue. That can be rectified for this particular group.
Thank you. So before we open the public hearing, I just want to say that back in the spring, when we were dealing with the pipe over the turnpike in Newton Corner, and there was a bunch of controversy over that, I reached out to Amy Smith, who you remember came and spoke to us. And she reached out to me back and said, let's talk about a pilot, an electrification pilot in Newton. So I reached out to the mayor and ended up working with Ann Berwick. And Ann and I have met with Amy. We met back in the spring and then we met over the summer, and we have a meeting in November to talk about a pilot. And to the last meeting, she brought, it was a cast of thousands. Unfortunately, I was driving to New Hampshire during the meeting, so I didn't write it all down. But she brought people from many people from National Grid, many people from Eversource. One of the things that she told us at that meeting was that part of the problem is that they don't do electric. Eversource doesn't make it. And they are prevented by regulation of sharing customer data with Eversource. They're not allowed. So they've asked DPU for a waiver so that they can have conversation with Eversource about, okay, if we do this part of Newton, is there enough electricity? And they're still waiting for this waiver. So that is definitely something that maybe we should write to DPU and ask them, give them the waiver so they can have this conversation. The conversation with Amy so far has been aiming towards electrification on the peripheries, where we're not talking about abandoning pipes that are connected to other pipes that are central to the whole system. So it's very early stages. I just wanted to let you know that we are having a conversation. I've learned a lot, and I had planned to write you a memo, but never got to it. And I will do it before the next meeting. Who's been there and what we've done.
Yes, I have been on those meetings as well,
Yes.
because I do work with Amy. This is Tammy.
Yes.
Yep, and she has brought several people to the table, and information-wise, she's able to access a lot of it. And this is why replacing the leak-prone pipe that is unsafe presently has to be what we continue to do until we can turn the corner, as they say.
Counselor Gentile.
Did you want to open up the public hearing? I can wait until the public
Hey,
speaks.
you wanna say something first, but then open the public hearing?
Let me just, I'll say this quickly. I can attest this, well, I can attest firsthand to the fact that my street is part of one of these projects, the Washington Street project, and I can tell you, that there are issues with leaks. So I'm in the minority, but I'm actually glad that National Grid is here and they're going to repair it because a repaired pipe, in my mind, is a safer pipe than what's going on now. And I understand that there are people in the room that if they had their way, there'd be no gas tomorrow and everything would be electrified. But as Tammy S. from National Grid said, that isn't happening. It isn't happening overnight, and it's going to be a while. And in the meantime, I want National Grid doing what they can to make areas safe, especially my area. So I'm glad they're here. Sometimes, there's a pattern that's going on, and that's, they come in. We know that we're limited in what we can do, but it almost feels as though we give them a hard time because we don't like gas, and the thing gets drawn out. And if there are legitimate questions that people have and want to have more, information, then I suppose that's a reason to hold. But I hope we don't delay this too long, because personally, I'd like to see the replacement made in all of these areas, not just in mine. So.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Gentile. Anybody else? So why don't we open the public hearing? I want to start with people who are in the room. Mr. Bearer.
Can I come to the table?
Why don't you join us at the table?
Thank you.
Yes.
Peter Barrow at 60 Endicott Street. And thank you for giving me a chance to speak. I'm going to talk about two things. The big picture is the long-term need to replace gas with electrification. And you need to have a plan, a citywide plan that cooperates with the city and National Grid and Eversource and the residents, and we need a plan to do that. And piecemeal isn't going to get us there. We really need a big plan, but the regulations, as was mentioned, don't permit that yet. But there's legislation on Beacon Hill that will help move that forward. I hope that gets passed soon. So big picture, and I've got some comments about the individual projects, but big picture, pipe replacement is extraordinarily wasteful way of reducing leaks. We did a study in 2023. National Grid spent $17 million on replacing pipes in Newton. And they spent $200,000 on fixing leaks in Newton. 200,000 versus 17 million. The 200,000 was much more effective in reducing leaks than the 17 million that was spent. So it's a huge cost, and this cost has to be borne by somebody eventually. They've proposed 4 GOLs tonight. If you add it up, it's 15,000 feet of pipe. The historical cost for pipe installation from National Grid was $575 per foot. That adds to $8.9 million. That's on the table of what you're being asked to approve. Just want to point out, the new senior center is shy of $20 million. This is equivalent to half the cost of the new senior center. And when you approve this, you're approving money, public money, and ratepayer money being spent for this purpose. There are other ways you could spend $8.9 million. You could fix all of Newton's or National Grid could fix all of National Grid's 444 current leaks. Everything in the city, you could fix all of them at the current cost estimate. Average cost of fixing a leak is $7,500 per leak. You could fix them all for $3.3 million. And still have left over $5.7 million, which could be spent on house electrification, for example. It's an extraordinarily wasteful way to use money. I also want to point out that pipe replacement doesn't prevent new leaks. We did a study of pipe replacement in 2023. During the course of the pipe replacement project, 5 leaks appeared on that length of, in that segment on those streets. And 2 leaks were reported after the replacement was finished. The year before in 2022, the numbers were 8 grade 1 leaks appeared during the replacement period. So replacement caused leaks, that's my point. And 3 leaks were reported after the replacement was finished. So I urge you to not approve this, get the information you need, and maybe by the next time this comes before you, we'll have some Beacon Hill legislation that will point us in the right direction and give you the authority you need to build the big plan, which is what we need. And a few comments on individual projects. On the Center Street project, I don't think, there's no way you can approve that from my point of view. They issued stamped drawings and it was an incomplete set. Only 1 of the 5 drawings actually appeared. So there's no way that the public could look at what was actually being approved. On Walnut Street, there were 43 buildings served that I could count. And the Walnut Street length is equivalent to $1.9 million would have been spent on that project. You could, it's enough money to electrify all of the houses served by, instead of replacing the pipe, you could electrify the whole zone. On Washington Street, there are about 20 buildings served, $2.9 million, same thing, you could electrify all of the buildings being served. And then on Canterbury Road, I've got a couple of other specifics. First is that there were 40 services at a cost of $45,000 per home. You could electrify all those homes for the same amount of money. But there's another question that I have, which is that there's a low pressure line in Canterbury Road now, serving all those houses. And their proposal is to put in a 22 PSI line, high pressure line, which spells to me that's an expansion of capacity, which not needed. And I'm just also wondering, what does National Grid intend to do to serve all those houses that are now getting low pressure? They're gonna have to put in pressure reducing valves, replace pipes for even more expense for each house along the street. And that would be a good question that I suggest you find out from what their plan is on Canterbury Road. And the final thing, it's along with their proposal for Canterbury Road is a very complex detour plan, because it's an isolated little area. And there are 2 sets of detour plans that were submitted, how to manage the traffic while they're digging up all the streets. In summary, I think, we need a big plan. I hope you will hold all of this and get some better enabling legislation out of Beacon Hill, and let's do this right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. So Mary and Tammy, Mr. Barrett raised a bunch of questions. I hope you've taken note of them, but we will also send you a summary of the issues that were raised tonight by this whole public hearing.
Can I make a comment? Here's a,
We're in the public hearing now.
okay, all right,
Can you
I'll
save it?
I'll save it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else like to know?
I have a question
Yeah,
first.
well, why don't you identify yourself?
Keith Tornheim, 120 Hyde Street,
Okay,
Newton Highlands. I believe the National Grid people said that the requirement was to replace pipes that were older than
860.
something like that. And none of these listed in your document are older than that. Or does it mean, is this traveling, so it's not really 1860, but that each year it's like it becomes closer to us? What
So-
actually is the
The,
requirement?
the regulations, as I understand them, they said 1860 or 8 inches or less of cast iron pipe. So, that's why we asked, since we don't really, there's not a requirement, as we understand it from DPU. Tammy and Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, that these pipes be replaced, but there's a safety issue as far as National Grid is concerned. But we've asked National Grid to provide us the science behind why these pipes need to be replaced as opposed to repaired.
But none of these are that old.
There were a few that were 8 inches or less, not
But-
many,
But I'm just saying, none were that old.
none were that old. I think that's right.
Many of them with the material, excuse me, this is Tammy, they're cast iron or bare steel. And with the age range, 1915, 1898, etc., the material is breaking down, which is how the leaking occurs. That's what leads to the safety.
I think you can. Just say, yep, sure, and identify yourself and distribute that. Sure, could I come speak? Sure, please. Come sit over here.
My name is Susan Farnheim. I live at 120 Hyde Street, which some of you will recognize in the agenda. The proposal is to start taking pipes, changing pipes right in front of our house and down to Center Street. We have been at that location for 50 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a member of Mothers Out Front. We have been working for a number of years now to reduce gas leaks. And of course, part of that effort is also to protect trees, which are important in climate change. We have gas heat, gas hot water, and a gas stove. And we often have the smell of gas in our kitchen, pollutes the air in our house. To try to limit fossil fuels, we have recently bought a plug-in hybrid car. I do 90% of my cooking on a countertop induction cooker, and my goal is to replace the gas stove with an induction stove. Future projects, unfortunately, we have Melbourne Tube electricity service in our house, so we will have to remove that in order to deal with insulating the walls. My goal is to have air source heat pumps. I want city money, our tax money, to go to fixing gas leaks instead of replacing the pipes. The pipe replacement goes against the state climate goals and recent legislation. And as Peter has said, fixing leaks is much more cost effective than extending gas infrastructure, which will be with us for generations to come, when the whole goal is to get off fossil fuels. So please deny the application and find a way, as you were talking about, for National Grid in the city to help people electrify their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else in the room? One person and there's someone behind you too. Okay, good. Two people behind you.
Several. Hello, thank you for having me speak. My name is Alan Gordon. I live at 27A Floral Street on the road. Also one of the streets on the list here. I'm an advocate, strong advocate for getting us off of fossil fuels as quickly as we can. I've recently taken over for Marcia, our friend Marcia here, President Newton. I'm also on your agenda for later as to be appointed to the SMMC. Personally, I've been working for some time to get myself off of fossil fuels. I started to drive an EV about 1.5 years ago. And 27A Floral is a new build, and I moved in there about 1.5 years ago, and I had a developer before we moved in replace the gas stove that they had installed with an induction range. I had a quote from him, I didn't use their quote, but I had somebody else replace the heat system, heat pumps. I still have hot water, gas hot water, and a gas fireplace that we never used that the developer installed. They hadn't done, but it's there. So my next plan would be to get off of the hot water, but I haven't done that yet. I've made these choices myself. They haven't been cheap, they've been expensive. But these are things that I've done because I think they're the right thing to do. I do them for myself, for the environment, for my kids. I have 4 kids, they're all 20, in their 20s, you know, knock wood, one day for my grandkids. But not just for me, I do this for you, your kids and your grandkids. I think it's important, and I think we all need to make decisions. Before I finish, I want to point out that I've looked at this, when I moved into this house, I've looked, there are no leaks on Floral Street. There are no reported leaks on Floral Street, so I don't know why the pipes on Floral Street need to be replaced. I understand for those places like Counselor Gentile, there are places where those leaks should be repaired, as Peter pointed out, repaired instead of replaced, and that makes sense to me. So, in closing, please deny this grant of location, all these requests, like I did at my house, to make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick.
Good evening. My name is Enrique Rosero. I'm a resident of Newton, 15 Garland Street. For the past 15 years, I've worked for the energy industry, oil and gas first, and recently with the utilities and National Grid. And I raised in opposition to granting these permits for 3 reasons. One, they are asking to replace our main arteries and the whole system, from the big pipe to the small pipe. They're asking you to replace mostly 1-on-1, so same capacity and diameter for equivalent in plastic. And the abandonment is minimal. When they are telling you that this is for safety reasons, I doubt it. If it was for safety, they would move in a different pace. The company has an incentive to do LVP, leak prone replacement, that is guarantee cost recovery for the company, and they track it. So they just allocate projects where they can get money back. Second, National Grid, despite all requests of presenting to you comprehensive plans to retire obsolete infrastructure, have failed to demonstrate that they have a plan to wean us of fossil fuel gas. As you can say, some of the people here, including my house, no longer use gas, yet their plan doesn't reflect that there is less use. There's a lot of discussion within the company regarding who should pay for the upgrades to electric grid when we go fully on electric. But believe me, there is no contention that us ratepayers have to carry the cost of these expensive gas network pipe upgrades. We'll be on the hook to guarantee cost recovery for the company for decades for these 100-year-old pipes. And at the very minimum, they should present you with a non-pipe alternative that is now a requirement from DPU. And number 3, the utility take you councillors for chumps. You are to nod and just rubber stamp their plans. National Grid has failed to respect your authority and the wishes of our community. We've asked repeatedly for fixes to the leaks, but they deem those low priority compared to installing these new plastic pipes. The plans make no consideration for local governments. Your jurisdiction is just on the way of their operation. National Grid is not a partner of the city government. They just take your approval for granted, so please show them that you are not at their service. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And this woman here.
My name is Mark Diane, and I live at 132 Church Street, and apparently am in some danger because I want to replace the pipe that runs in front of my house for safety reasons. So I didn't realize I was in danger from the pipe, but it's good to know. And I guess I'm curious about, I'm curious about several things. How much danger am I in? It's an interesting question. My grandson comes over, I can probably run out of the house, but if we're in that much danger, which seems we are, because we're right on the list. How much danger is that, and when do we get notice of that? That's an interesting question. This plan, and I'm going, we've had some odd visions of what's going on. Mine's pretty narrow. It's about 610 feet of pipe that is of immediate concern to me and my family, because it runs in front of our house. How much danger are we in? This appears to be expanding capacity to carry gas on our street. I don't know if you know that segment of Church Street, but it's about 12 houses, 2 churches, and a park. And there is extremely unlikely that any new building will ever be built on that. There's been one remodel, what was already a 2-family, and made it to another 2-family. Houses were built in the 1870s and were kind of full up. So it's unclear to me why this appears to be increasing capacity. That just seems like an odd approach to a pretty fixed environment. And of course, we, like everybody else in the city, are moving away from use of gas towards fossil fuel free heating and cooking and so on, as not as advanced as some of the people speaking here on that subject, on personal performance, but that's where we're going. So again, how much danger are we in? Why does this plan appear to increase capacity? Oh, and by the way, since most of the leaks I'm aware of are not in the mains, but are in the connections between the main and my house or the neighbor's house and so on. In this replacement, are they going to fix that as well? It's an interesting question. And I haven't talked to my neighbors yet. There is a neighborhood association. I'm certainly going to bring this to their attention. Both the are we in danger part and the what's going to happen. And I guess the last thing to say is we've got 2 churches, Church Street by me, and a school. So that while this is going on, this repair, assuming you approve it at some point, this replacement, a street which is a major route back and forth on the thing, and a place where the parking goes and where the school buses goes, and 2 daycare centers. How much disruption of the community of this little segment of the neighborhood is going to happen if this is approved? What kind of notice will we have, and how will those things be taken care of? It does seem to me if there were a cheaper and quicker way of dealing with the leaks themselves, stopping the leaks, repairing them either with these sleeves that they can put in or other high-tech fixes that Peter keeps talking about. That might be better in terms of disruption of the this neighborhood, and I imagine others are going to be in the same situation as soon as they see these lists. But I can just leave them there. So anyway, more information about how much in danger we are. Would this replacement involve the feeder lines from the main to the house? Mostly, I believe, occur, and the pipes are approximately equally old, I believe. And when's this going to happen, and what care is going to be taken to not disrupt the neighborhood with this, tiny portion of this list of things, but it's the one that I'm going to have to look at every time. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Ms. Cooper, did you want to speak?
Yes, I do. I'm Marcia Cooper. I live at 170 Evelyn Road in Wobbin, and I lived through pipe replacement on Evelyn Road and the adjacent streets, Helene Road and Paulson Road. I walk regularly around this neighborhood and detected no leak, no smell of leaks. There are areas where you can really smell gas leaks. I understood when I attended meetings that there was water intrusion on Mary Ellen Road. So that I was empathetic to that problem on Mary Ellen. When Peter mentioned close to $9 million for this proposed GOLs, one thing that's not even factored in, it's more than $9 million. because my property had damaged the plants and I had to work with the gas company, not just one time. They hand me a card and say, oh, sure, we'll replace the plants that were damaged, but it took several phone calls and, a lot of effort, a lot of time to eventually get the plants replaced. An 81-year-old neighbor had I think we had damage to our sprinkler system. An 81-year-old neighbor had damage to hers. Now, I'm not sure how many years ago this was, like 2 or 3 years ago. She is still calling, sending bills. They're giving her a hard time replacing it. So when you're figuring out price per foot of gas pipe, I have an old boiler system. I have old air conditioner system. I can't wait till they break so I can get heat pumps. I want heat pumps in my house. I do not want methane gas coming into my house. I don't use methane gas to cook. I use an induction cooktop. I don't want that poisonous gas. It's methane gas. I was just in Florida last week. I rode by homes that were destroyed. You see it on the news. You see so much bad news. I saw it firsthand. Damage. Helene, Milton, forest fires, all over the country. So $9 million for 4 GOLs. And on top of that, the billions of dollars to our environment, our climate disasters. These are factors that need to be factored in an urgent way. I don't know what I would do. I don't know what you're allowed to do, city councilors. But the thing is that if you can stall it, wait for what the state does, this is not necessary. What would it cost the gas company to put heat pumps in my house or to subsidize it? Ratepayers would save. Ratepayers paid for plants to be replaced in my yard. Ratepayers are paying for my neighbor's sprinkler system. Ratepayers are paying for these unnecessary polluting fossil fuel reliant pipes. So with all due respect, Councillor Gentile, I would like to see your gas leak fixed, but there's no need to replace those pipes on your street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? I think we're all covered in the room, so we'll go online. Can you get rid of those?
All persons is the first one.
Well, there was somebody,
Ellen Fisher.
Ellen Fisher, I think you had your hand up first. But somehow did you put it down? And I'm gonna let you go first because I think I saw your hand up first.
Unmute.
You're on mute.
She's gonna ask on you.
Oh, there we go. Oh, I didn't realize I had to do it that way. Okay. Thank you. I am Ellen Fisher. I live at 26 Canterbury Road, part of the small group of streets in the 4th Granite location. I'm going to be repeating some of the things that's been said here. And I also like to point out that we've known about this for a fairly short amount of time. So it's been hard for me to verify some of the things that I've heard things from trusted sources, and I'm going to quote them. I haven't been able to verify them myself. But it's that's just one of the problems here, is that this has been very, very short notice for all of us. So I'm told that the replacement on my set of streets is about $1.8 million. I'm sorry. My home has excellent insulation now. We have solar panels. In the past 5 years, we've substantially transitioned away from gas. We now have an electric car, electric clothes dryer, electric hot water, and an induction stove. And at this point, the only thing we still have running on gas is the home heat. It's only costing us about $1,100 per year. Yes, we have a small, well-insulated home, but many homes on these small streets are similar to ours. We are not outliers. Many of the homes in this small set of streets also have made significant transitions to electric. Many have heat pumps, solar panels, electric cars. These are what I can see from the outside as we walk. More transitions may also be in their kitchens and laundry rooms. $1.8 million for the 60 or so homes on this small set of streets represents roughly 30,000 per household. We're a lucky little group of streets. The map of Newton gas leaks only shows 2 leaks here. One is listed as negligible and the other as a minor leak. 1.8 million, 30,000 per home could help transition many or all of these homes to electric, or at a minimum, be better used to just fix leaks, probably for all of Newton, it sounds like from what Peter Barrow has said, just out of this one of the 4 GOLs. I'm told these, I'm sorry, hold on, I lost my place here for a moment. Yeah, I'm told that these 4 grants of location represent 8.9 million in upgrades, which I have to assume is just a small part of what National Grid will propose over the next few years, just in Newton, let alone the rest of the state. So it's pouring massive funds into upgrading a system that needs to sunset. It has been hard to, yeah, I just said that right, okay. I'm told that the new pipes will be rated for higher pressure than currently, and I don't yet know why anyone thinks higher pressure gas in the streets is a good idea. Yes, and I'm told that the new front of home outdoor meters and pressure regulators may be needed, and I don't know the ramifications of that or what it will look like. It's hard to grasp that all this can be planned with little or no notification by National Grid to the ratepayers and the homeowners. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Bob Parsons, you're next.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I live at 2396 Commonwealth Avenue in Auburndale. I'm a mechanical engineer. I've been working on energy efficiency and renewables for about 45 years. I know that the state legislature is about to vote on legislation that would change the gas safety enhancement program to allow repairing and retiring as options to replacing piping. And would also allow the DPU to require the gas company to evaluate the relative costs of repairing, replacing, and retiring before they proceed with any work. Retiring meaning electrifying the buildings on the segments of interest. And I think that's all about to be passed. So then I asked myself, well, why would National Grid suddenly be requiring replace or wanting to replace piping in Walnut Center and Washington Streets, all of which are major thoroughfares in Newton right now, just before this law might be about to get passed? I would really suggest that the committee postpone a decision on this to see what happens in the legislature and what the DPU decides to do about whatever happens, so that we can find out for sure what would it cost to repair the leaks in these areas, or what would it cost, as Ellen has said, you know, at an average of, well, $9 million is like enough to do 300 homes at an average cost of $30,000 per to do whole house heat pumps. And that's before the incentives. So I really think the committee should postpone a decision on this for those reasons.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ellie Goldberg, I think that's you. Yes.
Unmute.
You're muted.
Hi, Ellie Goldberg, 79 Elmore Street, and I have pipeline replacement projects going around all around Center Street and Com Ave and Ward Street, and it's been quite a disruption. I am a longtime child health environmental advocate. I especially worry about safety, and I usually mean breathing safety. And I've known since the 1980s that gas stoves were an indoor air polluter, and therefore I've never had gas in my home, especially since I have a child with asthma. And I don't think we have the same definition of safety as National Grid. So I want to make sure that we're aware of how many leaks all of these projects have been designed to fix, especially how many of the significant environmental leaks, the super gushers, some of which have been leaking for years, how many of those are considered a safety risk. And I wonder how many households have actually had the problem of water intrusion in Newton that National Grid is so concerned about. And I also want to clarify the definition of what a leak-prone pipe is compared to leaky pipes, because Peter has really done an amazing analysis to show the ineffectiveness of the pipeline replacement projects in reducing emissions or making any significant reduction in the number of leaks. In fact, we keep getting more leaks. So luckily, our new state legislation, which is about to pass, is going to offer us the option of retiring the pipes, which Mothers Out Front first presented to the city councilors 8 years ago. So we're not talking about doing something that we want to see happen overnight. We do want to see a transition. And we've been asking for it for 8 years, and we think we've given people enough imagination and enough suggestions that we should have been starting on this a long time ago. And the signs are only getting more urgent that this is something we have to pay attention to now. So I totally would hope that you would consider starting to do a citywide plan, but not just at the periphery. There are whole streets of people who have been switching to electric stoves, to electric cars, to solar panels. So I'm sure there are a lot more electrification zones for neighborhoods that would be willing, especially if we could take some of that money that National Grid would divert to pipeline replacements and actually electrify whole streets, whole neighborhoods. And then we really would be safer. We wouldn't have the outdoor pollution. We wouldn't have so many co-located high voltage electric lines with high volume gas leaks. Remember the April Walnut Street explosion a year and a half ago, where that was a paved over high volume leak. Many of our streets are paved over leaks. Every time I go to the library, I see a patch on Homer Street almost every, 6 feet, if not 12 feet. It's a very ugly, disruptive, polluting fossil fuel system. And it's been long overdue that we really plan to retire it. And if we added the federal subsidies for fossil fuels, the cost to us as taxpayers as well as ratepayers is much, much, much higher. And it's time to turn it off. It's time to plan for the strategic retirement and to really identify the high-risk areas that are prioritized for advanced leak repair. So then we would really all be safer. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised online, and
Actually, if I can say one more thing, the legislation that is being talked about was up for consideration today, is likely to be voted on either this week or next week, which in some significant ways change the rules for this. So it's, it specifically says when you're doing this kind of repair or replacement decision, this kind, that you have to show the DPU that it is better than repair or retirement, better, cheaper, and more in line with state policy. So that those are, it's literally not quite as we speak. The legislature adjourned today without voting much, but it will be up in the next couple of days.
okay, so I don't see anybody else who wants to speak today. Do you want to close the public hearing or leave it open? Because I'm guessing we'll be holding this.
I would suggest we leave it open, and I would love to make a motion to hold this item tonight to a date certain.
Well, to our next meeting.
To our next meeting, which
Yeah.
would be the given all we've heard, I'm convinced that we would be remiss to vote one way or the other on these tonight. I think there's more information we've asked for again. I think the case has been made very convincingly for a strategic plan, an overall comprehensive plan. Certain pieces of information have been asked for. Even as Councilor Gentile points out, and I'm sorry for you on Aspen Ave if this is gonna hold things up. I think we just need more time. I'm not doing this on purpose to delay things, to postpone them forever. But I think I'm convinced that we should at least wait to get answers to some of these questions and to see what the state legislature does. So I would like, I make that motion.
Okay, so you move hold, Councilor Gentile.
Two things, I'll be brief. First, my family home, that's the way I view it. My parents bought 1962 in West Newton, and I continue to own it today. It's always had oil heat. But I just wanted to let Ms. Cooper know that last week I put in 20 triple pane Energy Star rated windows. This week we are going to be doing a lot of insulating throughout the house to Mass Save standards. And most important, even though our oil heating system works fine, I am paying to put in all house throughout the house heat pump system, so the house will be fully electrified for HVAC. So I wanted to mention that because I know there's many people in the room that think I'm a dinosaur when it comes to this subject matter. So hopefully that warmed your hearts tonight that I'm doing those things. That's the first thing. Secondly, I expected that you would hold. One thing I would like to suggest, the chair mentioned earlier about summarizing and getting answers to certain questions from National Grid. And sometimes I don't think that we get enough information from National Grid. I think sometimes people question the explanations, and that's not good for anybody. And I think they need to respond. So I would suggest Mr. Barra made a number of points. He cited a lot of statistics and numbers, and I would ask that we actually take a transcript of his testimony and send it to National Grid and ask them to respond and defend their actions. I was, one thing that jumped out at me, Peter, I think he said that last year National Grid spent $200,000 on repairs, and I think he said $17 million on replacement in the city of Newton. And then he concluded by saying that the $200,000 in repairs were more efficient in preventing leaks. I'm not saying he's wrong. It's just, to me, it's like, how can that be when there's such a discrepancy in what's being spent? So, and he cited a number of other things that he discovered in doing his study. And I think, take the transcript, don't just summarize, take the transcript, get it to them and say, respond to these things. You need to justify, what you're requesting here. So I hope that we will do that. And then there were a couple of other points that were made, but I think they were all sort of in the same idea of how expensive it is to do this, full replacement rather than repair. As others mentioned. So I think I think that Peter's comments will capture the main issues that National Grid needs to respond to.
Mr. Parsons, I think we're gonna leave the public hearing open, so I think if it's okay with you, I think we'll wait and hear your comments at the next meeting. Is that, unless there's something that's pressing?
You are muted though, Bob Person.
No, she's about to be,
Oh,
he's about to be.
Now I'm not. I do not think Counselor Gentile is a dinosaur. I'm really happy he's doing all those things in his family's home. But that brings up the point, if whoever pays the utility bill for that family home is not going to be paying anything into the gas company over the next maybe 60 years for which this new piping gets paid for, who is going to be paid for that? And will it be the people who can't afford to put in triple pane windows and heat pumps? Or will it end up being all of us taxpayers bailing out the investors in National Grid who have been promised a 60-year return on an investment they're making now with our money?
So before we vote on this motion to hold, I just want to say a little bit more about the work that Amy Smith and we have been doing, and Berwick and I. She's reached out to us. They've decided they're required to do a pilot of electrification, and they've chosen a town, city, and it's not us. It's a town where they are both the supplier of gas and electric. And apparently Eversource has chosen a similar town where they are the supplier of both gas and electric. But she's willing to take us on as a pilot. And one thing that I've learned is that you can't start abandoning pipes that connect out to all the other pipes, because, you know, it's like taking the middle of the railroad out and the cars can't get from here to there. So this will take a very complex, hard working plan to make this work. We will really need to all, you know, they will need to work with us and we will need to work hard with them to figure it out. It's really not gonna be easy to figure it out. But I think the fact that she's willing to work with us is a good step in the right direction. So if we move hold on this, I think we can get them to come back in the next meeting and give us answers and have more conversation and decide what to do. Councilor Kalis.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if they can, I'd hope they can come back as fast as possible, because if there is any safety issues here, and it's up in the air. I just don't understand whether there are or not. The pipes seem old, but and they say there are, but others are saying there aren't. So I'd like them to come back as fast as possible so we can move this along.
So there is a website, the Department of Transportation, I think federal, has a website that has all the gas explosions that have happened. And I think it's up to date as far as 2022, but if you click on the states, you'll see where there are problems. So it's not like they're lying to us that nothing has ever happened. Yeah, things have happened and you can go look them up. We can send out the website to people, they can look it up.
It's a question,
Well,
quickly. They can repair.
yes, and that's why we've asked for the evidence of why they can't repair.
To Counselor Kales's point, I'm saying for the sake, they can repair.
Well, they say they can't, so let's find out why. Let's find out why.
That's one of our questions.
Yes, I think that's the most important question. actually.
Will
Why?
you, Chair, have the list of questions for
Yes,
them, or will it just be whatever's in the report?
we'll put together a list of questions that we can have and then we will send to the National Grid.
Okay.
Okay, so all those in favor of who? Tammy, sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. Yeah, I just wanted to mention before you vote and close, National Grid is regulated by the DPU and the state of Massachusetts and the federal government. We can't just willy-nilly go do work when we feel like it. I just want that stated for the record. Additionally, when is your next meeting? When would this be held to?
I can tell you in a second. We're looking up the dates.
Typically 2 weeks, but let's get the actual answer.
November 6th.
November 6th, Tammy.
Okay. Okay. Yes, please definitely submit the questions. And we would be more than happy to get the responses and give you information. And I appreciate having the time to speak as well.
Good, thank you very much. Okay, so all those in favor of poll? Aye. Or
All
not?
right,
Is that Councilor Healy voted?
Aye.
Anybody abstaining, anybody?
There's only
saying
one.
No, because we're all on
Only
unanimous.
one absent, so it would be 7, right?
2 absent.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, all of you, for helping with this. And our last item is item 386.
You're still here.
Madam Chair,
Your Honor, the Mayor, reappointing Alan
Ma-
Ward.
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes, Council Gentile.
before you take up the last item, which I think will be quick and everybody's leaving, I want to just mention something. I'm not trying to pick on you. But I keep forgetting to bring this up at the chairman's meetings that we have from time to time. I know we're still all working our way through Zoom and so forth, but I find it annoying when people come in and speak, but they don't put their video on. I know that in finance, if someone's coming in and they're gonna speak, I ask, that the video be on. We do it all the time, even if we have our video off and then we go to speak, we always turn it on so people know who's speaking. And I just think that it should be a policy of ours, for all of us chairs, to do that. Now I know, I didn't want to say anything tonight because I didn't want Mary to think, that I was picking on her. Mary's been coming in here. She's a very nice lady. She does the best job that she can, but just put the video on if you're gonna be speaking to her. So I don't know how others feel, but if you could just keep that in mind and think about it, we don't need to talk about it tonight.
Thank you, Council Gentile. And now to our last item, 386-24. Your Honor, the Mayor reappointing Alan Gordon, 27A Floral Street, Newton Highlands, as a member of the Sustainable Materials Management Commission for a term to expire on October 18th, 2027. Since you're here, would you like to say something?
Well, all I would say is that because it wasn't my turn to speak when you were talking to Alex about composting and ideas, I was biting my tongue because I had so much to say. So I would love to come talk to you guys all about that whenever you want.
Okay.
We talk about those things a
We
lot.
can talk an item to talk about that.
As Vicky knows, I worked a lot with Vicky on the plastic ordinance that was passed, right? So these issues are top of mind. We are excited to have Alex join us, and we love to talk about these things.
Okay.
So
Anytime
happy to at any point.
you want to initiate a docket item for us to talk to you about, please feel free. But we will definitely docket an item for composting.
Yeah.
Since you brought it up.
There's water bottles we're talking about, right? There's lots of things we're talking about.
Well, they have to be relevant, I mean, for this committee, so water bottles.
It would be great. It would be.
Yeah.
For certain, yes, composting, we can talk about for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being willing to keep serving.
Yes.
And nice to see you in person for me, who has not met you before.
Good to see you.
So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that's unanimous. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you all very much. Yeah, they're not here, so they must do